The moment my father's face went from smug satisfaction to ash-white terror is burned into my memory forever. "That's impossible," he whispered, his voice cracking like dry wood. You destroyed a copy, Mr. Morrison," Harold Jennings said, his weathered hands placing the original will on the mahogany table with a sound that echoed like a judge's gavel. "Your mother was far more careful than you gave her credit for." My mother's champagne glass slipped from her fingers. The crystal shattered against the hardwood floor, the same floor where Grandma Rose used to teach me to waltz on Sunday afternoons. Brandon, my golden child brother, actually stumbled backward, his new Rolex catching the light as he gripped the chair for balance. And me? I just stood there, tears streaming down my face, watching 26 years of favoritism, manipulation, and stolen dreams unravel in real time. They thought they'd gotten away with it. They had no idea Grandma Rose had been 10 steps ahead all along. I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. When someone uses the word family to justify hurting you, they're not talking about love. They're talking about control, about obligation, about the chains they think you should wear simply because you share the same blood. My name is Jennifer Morrison. Most people call me Jenny. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent the last decade building a career in marketing while watching my younger brother Brandon coast through life on charm and empty promises. I was the daughter who showed up, who remembered birthdays, who sat through countless Sunday dinners listening to my parents explain why Brandon just needed a little more time to figure things out. I was the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who didn't need help. And that, I learned, is a dangerous thing to be in a family that mistakes dependence for love. This is the story of how my parents stole $450,000 that my grandmother left specifically for me, how they justified it, how they celebrated it, and how Grandma Rose, even from beyond the grave, made sure the truth would come out. Grandma Rose wasn't like other grandmothers. She didn't bake cookies or knit scarves, though she certainly could have if she'd wanted to. Instead, she taught me how to balance a checkbook when I was 12, how to read a contract when I was 15, how to walk away from a bad deal, whether in business or in life, when I was 17 and crying over my first serious boyfriend. "Jennifer," she told me that night, her silver hair caught in the amber glow of her reading lamp, "the people who truly love you will never ask you to diminish yourself to make them comfortable." I didn't fully understand what she meant back then. Her house smelled like lavender and old books. She lived in a modest 2-story colonial in a quiet neighborhood, nothing extravagant, but comfortable. Paid off decades ago with money she'd saved working as a bookkeeper, then later as an accountant for a small manufacturing firm. Grandma Rose had come from nothing, built something, and never forgot the value of $1. Every other Saturday, I'd drive the 40 minutes from my apartment to have lunch with her. We'd sit in her sunroom, surrounded by her collection of African violets, and talk about everything. My job, her garden, politics, books, life. "How's Brandon doing?" she'd ask, though her tone always suggested she already knew the answer. "He's figuring things out," I'd say, because that's what I'd been trained to say. She'd give me that look, the one that saw right through the family script, and pat my hand. "And how are you doing, sweetheart?" Those conversations were oxygen. Brandon, on the other hand, showed up maybe 4 times a year, usually around the holidays, and always with some new crisis that required just a small loan to fix. Grandma would listen patiently, write him a check, and after he left, she'd shake her head and return to her crossword puzzle without a word. My parents loved to compare us. "Why can't you be more fun like your brother?" Mom would say, when I'd decline joining them at Brandon's latest party. "Jennifer, you're so uptight," Dad would add. "Brandon knows how to enjoy life." What they meant was, Brandon knows how to make us feel young. Brandon doesn't remind us that we're getting older, that we've made mistakes, that life requires actual effort. I reminded them of all those things simply by existing as a functional adult. Brandon never held a job longer than 8 months. He'd gotten a business degree that my parents paid for, the same degree I'd earned on a partial scholarship while working 20 hours a week at a campus bookstore, and he'd done absolutely nothing with it. He's looking for the right opportunity, they'd say. What he was actually doing was bouncing between half-baked entrepreneurial ventures that somehow always required family investment and somehow always failed. A food truck that never opened. A cryptocurrency scheme he swore was about to explode. A partnership in a friend's bar that collapsed in 6 months. And the gambling. I didn't know about the gambling until much later, but I knew about the expensive watches, the designer clothes, the trips to Vegas that he'd document extensively on social media while being 3 months behind on the rent for the condo my parents helped him lease. Meanwhile, I was driving a 7-year-old Honda, packing my lunch 4 days a week, and slowly building my savings account like Grandma Rose had taught me. "You're doing so well, Jennifer," Grandma would say, genuine pride in her eyes. "You don't know how rare that is, to build something real, something that lasts." In her final year, Grandma Rose started getting her affairs in order. She was 84, sharp as ever, but she knew time was finite. She asked me to help her organize her documents, sort through old photos, donate clothes she no longer wore. "I want to make this easy for everyone," she said one afternoon, her thin hands folded over a manila folder. "No fighting, no confusion, everything clear and accounted for. Grandma, you're going to outlive all of us," I joked, though my throat was tight. She smiled. "Maybe, but a smart woman plans ahead." I didn't know then that she was planning for more than just her death. She was planning for the inevitable moment when my parents would show the world exactly who they really were, and she was making absolutely certain that when that moment came, there would be no escaping the truth. If you're already feeling that anger rising in your chest, that sense of injustice, then you're in the right place. Hit subscribe so you don't miss stories like this. Stories about people who finally stood up for themselves. And comment below, what would you do if your parents did this to you? Let's get back to the story. The call came on a Tuesday morning in March. I was in the middle of a client presentation when my phone vibrated against the conference table. I glanced down and saw Mom's name on the screen. She never called during work hours. My stomach dropped before I even knew why. "I'm so sorry," I told my team, my voice already unsteady. "I need to take this." I made it to the hallway before I answered. "Jennifer." My mother's voice was flat, emotionless in that way people get when they're in shock. "It's your grandmother. She passed away this morning." The fluorescent lights above me suddenly seemed too bright, the carpet beneath my feet too soft. Everything tilted sideways for just a moment. "What happened?" I managed to ask. "Her heart. Peaceful," they said. "She was in her garden." Of course she was. Grandma Rose would have wanted it that way. Hands in the soil, surrounded by the things she'd nurtured into bloom. I don't remember driving to my apartment. I don't remember calling my boss to say I needed bereavement leave. What I remember is sitting on my bedroom floor at 2 p.m, still in my work clothes, crying so hard I thought I might break in half. Grandma Rose had been my constant, my compass, the one person in my family who saw me, really saw me, and loved what she found. And now she was gone. The funeral was on Saturday. Brandon showed up 15 minutes late, wearing sunglasses indoors, and a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He hugged Mom and Dad like he was the grieving favorite son, his voice appropriately somber as he accepted condolences from relatives who hadn't seen him in years. "Brandon's taking this so hard," Mom whispered to Aunt Linda. "He and Rose had such a special bond." I stood 3 feet away, holding the program I designed and printed myself because no one else had volunteered. I'd also written Grandma's obituary, chosen her casket, selected the flowers, and organized the reception afterward. But sure, Brandon was taking it hard. During the service, I gave the eulogy. I talked about Grandma's strength, her wisdom, her refusal to suffer fools. I told the story about how she'd taught me to change a tire when I was 16, because a woman should never be stranded waiting for a man to rescue her. People laughed, some cried, And when I sat down, Dad leaned over and whispered, "That was nice, Jennifer. Very nice. Nice." My grandmother's entire life, reduced to nice. Brandon didn't speak, didn't offer, didn't even pretend he'd prepared anything. He just sat in the front row, checking his phone every 10 minutes like he had somewhere more important to be. At the reception, I watched him work the room like he was networking at a cocktail party. He'd always been charming, I'll give him that. He knew exactly what to say to make people feel like they were the most important person in the world. For about 5 minutes. Then he'd move on to the next person, the next opportunity, the next thing that might benefit him. "Jenny, sweetheart." Mrs. Chen from Grandma's book club touched my arm. "Your grandmother talked about you constantly. She was so proud of everything you've accomplished." "Thank you," I said, my throat tight. "She meant the world to me." "I know she did, and you meant the world to her." Mrs. Chen's eyes were damp behind her glasses. "She told me just last month that you were the only one who really understood her." I excused myself before I started crying again. In the kitchen, I found Brandon leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone with one hand while holding a plate of food in the other. "Hey," I said. He looked up, gave me that 1,000-watt smile. "Hey, sis. Hell of a day, huh?" "Yeah. You did good with the eulogy. Really moving. Thanks." He took a bite of pasta salad, still looking at his phone. "So, have Mom and Dad said anything about, Grandma's will?" There it was. Less than 6 hours since we'd put her in the ground, and he was already thinking about money. "No," I said carefully. "Why would they?" He shrugged. "Just wondering. I mean, she had to have left something, right? That house alone is probably worth 400 grand. Easy." My hands clenched at my sides. "Brandon, we buried her this morning." I know. He set his phone down, held up his hands like he was innocent. "I'm not being greedy or anything. I'm just saying, we should be prepared. Estate stuff can get complicated." "Right. Anyway," he picked up his phone again. "I gotta head out soon. Got a thing tonight." "A thing?" "Yeah, some buddies are in town. We're hitting this new place downtown." He must have seen something in my face because he added, "What?" "Life goes on, Jenny. Grandma wouldn't want us sitting around being sad forever." He left 20 minutes later, hugging Mom and Dad goodbye, promising to stop by soon, and disappearing into his luxury sedan, a car he'd bought 6 months ago with money he definitely didn't earn. I stayed and helped clean up, washed dishes, packed leftovers, threw away paper plates. Dad found me in the kitchen around 7, looking tired and older than I'd ever seen him. "You should go home, Jennifer. Get some rest. I'm almost done. Your mother and I appreciate everything you've done this week. Really, you've been..." He trailed off, like he couldn't quite find the word. "Reliable? Useful? The daughter who shows up?" "It's okay, Dad." He nodded, patted my shoulder awkwardly, and walked away. I finished the dishes in silence. The weeks after Grandma's death blurred together. I threw myself into work because work was predictable, controllable. I could manage a marketing campaign. I could analyze data and create presentations and solve problems that had actual solutions. What I couldn't manage was the hole in my life where Grandma Rose used to be. I'd pick up my phone to call her, then remember. I'd drive past her street and think about stopping by, then remember. I'd have a small victory at work and want to share it, then remember. Grief is like that. It sneaks up on you in the produce section when you see her favorite apples. It hits you in traffic when a song she loved comes on the radio. It wakes you up at 3 in the morning with the crushing realization that you'll never hear her voice again. Mom called occasionally to check in, but mostly to give me updates about Brandon. "He's been really struggling with Rose's death," she told me 3 weeks after the funeral. "He's having a hard time focusing on his job search." Brandon hadn't been job searching before Grandma died. He certainly wasn't job searching now. "Maybe he should talk to someone," I suggested. "A therapist might help." "Oh, you know your brother. He's not really the therapy type. He just needs some time." Time. Brandon always needed more time, more chances, more understanding, more money. I'd been supporting myself since I graduated college. Brandon was 26 and still receiving a monthly allowance from our parents, a fact I'd only discovered accidentally when I overheard Dad on the phone discussing a bank transfer. "It's just temporary," Dad had said when I asked about it later, "until he gets on his feet." Brandon had been getting on his feet for 4 years, but I was the uptight one, the one who didn't know how to have fun, the one who didn't understand that some people just needed a little more help. 6 weeks after Grandma Rose died, Mom called and asked me to come to dinner on Sunday. "Your father and I need to discuss something with you and Brandon," she said, "about your grandmother's estate." My heart started beating faster. "Okay. It's nothing bad," she added quickly. "Just some things we need to go over. As a family." I said I'd be there, hung up, and sat very still in my quiet apartment. Somewhere deep in my gut, I knew that whatever was coming would change everything. I just had no idea how right I was. Sunday dinner at my parents' house had always been a performance. Mom would cook too much food. Dad would talk about golf. Brandon would show up late with some charming excuse. And I would sit there playing my role as the dependable daughter, pretending everything was normal. But that Sunday, 8 weeks after Grandma Rose's death, felt different from the moment I walked through the door. The dining room table was set formally, like Thanksgiving. Mom had even used the good china, the set Grandma had given them for their 25th anniversary. Brandon was already there, which was unusual. He was never early. "Jennifer, sweetheart." Mom kissed my cheek, her perfume overwhelming in the small entryway. "We're so glad you could make it." "Of course." Dad emerged from his study, reading glasses perched on his nose, carrying a folder. A legal folder. The kind with a law firm's name embossed in the corner. My stomach tightened. "Let's sit down," Dad said, his voice carefully neutral. "We have some things to discuss." We gathered around the table. Mom served pot roast that I suddenly had no appetite for. Brandon helped himself to generous portions, casual and relaxed like this was just another Sunday. Dad opened the folder. "As you both know, your grandmother's estate has been settled. Her attorney finalized everything last week, and your mother and I have reviewed all the documents." He cleared his throat. Rose was very clear about her final wishes. I set down my fork. My hands were shaking. She left the house and the majority of her savings to Brandon. The words hung in the air like smoke. I must have misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from underwater. "Your grandmother left her estate to Brandon," Mom repeated gently, like she was explaining something simple to a child. "The house, her savings, her investment accounts. It's all detailed here." She slid a piece of paper across the table toward me. I stared at it. The words blurred together. I saw numbers. Big numbers. $450,000. The house appraised at $425,000. Investment accounts. Savings bonds. Everything Grandma Rose had spent her entire life building. All to Brandon. "There must be a mistake," I said. "There's no mistake, honey." Dad's tone was firm, final. This is what she wanted. Grandma wouldn't... My throat closed. I couldn't breathe. She wouldn't do this. Brandon finally looked up from his pot roast, and for just a second, just a flash, I saw something in his eyes. Not surprise, not confusion, satisfaction. "I'm as shocked as you are, sis," he said, but his voice was too smooth, too practiced. "I had no idea Grandma was going to be so generous." "Generous?" The word came out sharp. "Brandon, you barely visited her. You showed up 4 times a year asking for money." "Jennifer," Mom's voice had that warning tone. "That's not fair." "Not fair? I spent every other Saturday with her for 10 years. I helped her with her bills, her garden, her appointments. I was there. And that was wonderful, sweetheart. But your grandmother made her own choices." Mom folded her hands on the table, her expression placid. She clearly felt that Brandon needed this more than you do. The room tilted. Needed it more? Well, yes. Dad adjusted his glasses. "Jennifer, you have a good job. You're financially stable. You've always been very independent. Brandon is still finding his way, and Rose obviously wanted to give him a foundation to build on. A foundation. I laughed, and it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. He's 26 years old. How long does he get to find his way before someone expects him to grow up? That's enough. Dad's voice went cold. I know you're upset, but this is what your grandmother wanted. We need to respect her wishes. Her wishes? Or your wishes? The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's fork clinked against her plate. What exactly are you implying? I'm implying that this doesn't make sense. Grandma Rose spent years teaching me about financial responsibility, about building something that lasts. She watched Brandon blow through money like water. Why would she give him everything? Because he's her grandson too, Mom said, her voice rising. Because she loved him. Because not everything in this family is about you, Jennifer. The accusation hit like a slap. I never said it was about me. Didn't you? Mom's eyes were bright with tears now, the kind she could summon at will when she needed to be the victim. You've always been jealous of Brandon, always competing with him, always acting like you're better than him because you have a job and he's still figuring things out. I'm not. You are. She stood up, her chair scraping against the hardwood. You've always looked down on him, on us, acting like we're not good enough because we don't live up to your impossible standards. I stared at her, genuinely speechless. This was how they were going to play it. I was the jealous sister, the uptight one, the one who couldn't just be happy for her brother. Brandon had the decency to look uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything, didn't defend me, didn't tell them they were being unfair. He just sat there, fork in hand, while our parents rewrote reality to suit their narrative. Your mother's right, Dad said quietly. This jealousy isn't healthy, Jennifer. Brandon is your brother. You should be happy that he's being given an opportunity. An opportunity. My voice was flat now, empty. Is that what we're calling it? What would you call it? Dad's jaw tightened. I'd call it enabling. I'd call it rewarding irresponsibility. I'd call it enough. Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the china rattle. This discussion is over. Your grandmother made her decision. It's legal, it's binding, and it's final. You will accept it with grace, or you will leave this house. I looked at my father, this man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd helped me with my math homework, who'd told me he was proud when I graduated college debt-free, and I realized I didn't recognize him anymore. Or maybe I'd never really known him at all. Jennifer, please. Mom's voice softened, switching tactics. Don't make this harder than it has to be. We're family. Family supports each other. Family supports each other. I repeated slowly. Is that what this is? Yes. She reached for my hand across the table. I pulled away. Sweetheart, I know this is disappointing, but you have to understand. Brandon needs this. You've always been so strong, so capable. You don't need an inheritance to be successful. But your brother, he needs help. He needs a chance to prove himself, with $450,000. It's not about the money, Dad said. It's about giving him the tools to build a life. He's had 26 years to build a life, and now he has the means to really do it. Dad closed the folder with finality. This conversation is over, Jennifer. You can accept your grandmother's decision, or you can continue to make this about your own hurt feelings. The choice is yours. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady beneath me. You're right, I said quietly. The choice is mine. I walked to the entryway, grabbed my purse, and headed for the door. Jennifer, wait, Mom started. No. I turned back to look at them, all three of them sitting at that formal table with the good china and the pot roast and the legal documents that had just destroyed whatever remained of our family. I'm done waiting. I'm done being the understanding one. I'm done pretending this is normal. You're being dramatic, Dad said. Maybe. Or maybe I'm finally seeing things clearly for the first time in my life. Brandon finally spoke. Jenny, come on. Don't leave like this. I looked at my brother, my charming, irresponsible, golden child brother, who just inherited a fortune he didn't earn from a woman he barely visited. Enjoy your inheritance, Brandon. I hope it lasts longer than your last business venture. I didn't slam the door. I closed it quietly, carefully, with the same composure I'd maintained my entire life while being the daughter who didn't matter as much. I made it to my car before I started crying. I made it home before I started screaming. And I made it through that entire night believing that my grandmother, my compass, my constant, the woman who'd taught me that I was worth more than the scraps people were willing to give me, had decided in the end that I didn't matter at all. It would be 3 more weeks before I learned the truth. 3 weeks of silence from my parents. 3 weeks of watching Brandon post photos on social media of his new investment opportunities. 3 weeks of grinding through work while feeling like I was breaking apart from the inside. 3 weeks of believing that the one person who'd truly seen me had chosen someone else in the end. And then Harold Jennings called. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what those 3 weeks looked like. The first thing Brandon bought was a car. Not just any car. A BMW M4 convertible in midnight blue with cream leather interior. He posted about it on Instagram 2 days after our dinner. A carousel of photos showing him leaning against the hood, keys dangling from his finger, caption reading, "New beginnings. Grandma Rose would want me to enjoy life. Blessed, your family first, family first." I stared at that post for 20 minutes, sitting in my 7-year-old Honda that had just hit 140,000 miles and was making a concerning rattling sound every time I accelerated. The comments were full of congratulations. Friends I'd never heard him mention. Girls in bikinis with heart eye emojis. Guys calling him lucky and asking if he was hiring. Mom commented, "So proud of you, sweetheart. You deserve this." Dad commented, "Looking sharp, son." Mom, I closed the app before I threw my phone across the room. The second week, Brandon moved into a luxury apartment downtown. I only knew because Mom called to tell me about it, not to check on me. She hadn't done that since the dinner, but to share the exciting news about Brandon's fresh start. "It's in that new high-rise on 5th Avenue, she gushed. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the river. There's a gym, a pool, even a concierge service. Can you imagine?" I could imagine. I'd looked at apartments in that building when I first moved to the city. The rent started at $3,200 a month. "That's great, Mom," I said flatly. "He's really turning his life around, Jennifer. This is exactly what he needed. A nice space where he can focus on building his business." "What business?" "Well, he's exploring options. He met with some investors last week about a tech startup. Something with apps, I think. He's being very strategic about it." Strategic. Brandon couldn't strategize his way out of a paper bag, but he could certainly spend money like he'd earned it. "I'm happy for him," I lied. "I knew you would be." Mom's voice warmed. "I told your father you'd come around. You just needed some time to process. Process. Like grief. Like I was mourning something I'd lost instead of realizing something I'd never actually had. I have to go, Mom. I'm at work." "Of course, sweetheart. We'll talk soon." We didn't talk soon. Meanwhile, my life looked very different. My rent was due, and I was $200 short because my car had needed new brakes. The kind of expense that appears out of nowhere and decimates a carefully planned budget. I picked up an extra freelance project, social media management for a local bakery, that paid $500 but required 10 hours of work I didn't have. I ate ramen 4 nights that week. Not the trendy kind from the Japanese place downtown. The 29-cent packets from the grocery store that turn into sodium-soaked regret around midnight when you're still awake, still working, still trying to make everything balance. My coworker Sarah noticed. "You okay?" she asked one afternoon, finding me in the break room staring at my plain turkey sandwich. No cheese, no extras, just the cheapest possible lunch I could make. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine. You look exhausted. Just busy." She didn't push, but I saw the concern in her eyes. The same concern I'd been seeing everywhere lately. From my boss, from my friends, from the barista at my coffee shop who'd watched me switch from lattes to plain drip coffee with free refills. I was tired of being concerned about. tired of being the person people worried over in hushed tones. But I was more tired of being broke, while my brother posted photos of bottle service at clubs I couldn't afford to walk past. Week 3, Brandon went to Miami. The posts were constant. Him on a yacht. Him at a rooftop pool party surrounded by people in designer swimwear. Him at a steakhouse with a tomahawk ribeye the size of my head and a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my grocery budget for the month. Living my best life, one caption read. Grandma Rose taught me that life is short. Make it count. Grandma Rose taught him no such thing. Grandma Rose taught me to save receipts, to build an emergency fund, to never spend money I didn't have. She taught me that wealth wasn't about flash. It was about security, about building something that could weather storms. Brandon was lighting her legacy on fire and posting it for likes. I wanted to scream. Instead, I went to work. I smiled at clients. I delivered presentations. I came home to my small apartment with the leaky faucet I couldn't afford to fix, and the air conditioning that only worked on the lowest setting. And I tried not to think about the fact that my grandmother, the woman I'd loved more than almost anyone, had apparently decided that her irresponsible, immature grandson deserved everything, while her responsible, faithful granddaughter deserved nothing. My parents called once during those 3 weeks. Dad, not Mom. Jennifer, your mother and I think you should apologize to Brandon. I was so stunned I almost dropped the phone. Apologize for what? For the things you said at dinner. For implying that he didn't deserve his inheritance. He's very hurt by your reaction. He's hurt? Yes. He feels like you're not supporting him during this important transition in his life. I laughed. I couldn't help it. His important transition. Right. The one where he's partying in Miami on Grandma's money while I'm eating ramen to afford my rent? That's not fair, Jennifer. Brandon is investing in his future. Is that what we're calling it now? He's taking meetings, exploring opportunities, building connections. That's what successful people do. Dad's voice hardened. Just because you don't understand his approach doesn't mean it's not valid. Dad, he bought a car that costs more than I make in a year. He needed reliable transportation. He's renting an apartment that costs more than my rent and utilities combined. He needed a professional space to meet with investors. He's in Miami right now posting pictures of bottle service. He's networking. Dad's voice rose. God, Jennifer, why can't you just be happy for him? Why does everything have to be a competition with you? There it was again. The narrative. The script. I was the jealous one. The bitter one. The one who couldn't just let her brother succeed. I have to go, I said quietly. Not until you promise me you'll call your brother and apologize. I'm not going to do that, Dad. Then don't expect to be welcome at family dinners until you do. He hung up before I could respond. I sat on my couch. The same couch I'd bought secondhand 5 years ago. The one with the faded cushions and the broken leg I'd propped up with books. And I cried. Not because I was sad. Because I was angry. Angry at my parents for choosing Brandon over me. Over and over. For my entire life. Angry at Brandon for being so oblivious. So entitled. So willing to take everything and give nothing. Angry at myself for caring. For still wanting their approval. For still hoping that someday they'd see me the way they saw him. But mostly, I was angry at Grandma Rose. For leaving. For not being here to explain. For making me believe I mattered when apparently, in the end, I didn't matter at all. I was so angry I couldn't see straight. Which is probably why, when my phone rang 3 days later with a number I didn't recognize, I almost didn't answer. But I did. And everything changed. Is this Jennifer Morrison? The voice was male, older, with the careful enunciation of someone who'd spent decades choosing his words with precision. Yes. Who's calling? My name is Harold Jennings. I was your grandmother Rose's attorney. My entire body went cold. I didn't know she had an attorney. My parents handled everything with their lawyer. There was a pause on the other end of the line. A significant pause. Ms. Morrison, would you be available to meet with me? In person, preferably. There are some matters concerning your grandmother's estate that require immediate attention. My parents said the estate was settled. I'm sure they did. His tone was carefully neutral, but something underneath it made my pulse quicken. However, there are certain discrepancies that have come to my attention. Discrepancies that directly concern you. What kind of discrepancies? The kind best discussed face to face. I have an office downtown. Would tomorrow afternoon work for you? Say, 2 o'clock? I should have been suspicious. I should have called my parents, asked questions, demanded answers over the phone. But something in Harold Jennings' voice, something steady and certain, made me trust him in a way I hadn't trusted anyone in weeks. I'll be there. Excellent. I'll send you the address. He paused again. Ms. Morrison, I want you to know that your grandmother was one of the sharpest women I've ever known, until the very end. What she put in place, it wasn't an accident. He hung up before I could ask what that meant. Harold Jennings's office was in an older building near the courthouse, the kind of place that smelled like leather and paper and decades of legal work. The receptionist led me to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a massive oak desk that looked like it had witnessed 1,000 difficult conversations. Harold himself was exactly what I'd imagined from his voice. Late 60s, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, wearing a suit that had probably cost a fortune 30 years ago and had been maintained impeccably ever since. Ms. Morrison. He stood, extended his hand. His grip was firm. Thank you for coming. You said there were discrepancies. Direct. I appreciate that. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Your grandmother was the same way. She didn't waste time with pleasantries when something important needed to be said. I sat down, my purse clutched in my lap like a shield. Harold opened a file folder, a thick one, organized with colored tabs and careful notations. Nothing like the single document my father had shown me at dinner. Ms. Morrison, I've been your grandmother's attorney for 23 years. I helped her draft her will in 2004, and we updated it periodically as her circumstances changed. The last update was made 14 months ago, approximately 8 months before her passing. He slid a document across the desk toward me. This is the original, legally binding will that your grandmother signed in my presence, with 2 witnesses, and which was filed with this office in accordance with state law. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The first thing I noticed was my name, over and over, on nearly every page. To my granddaughter, Jennifer Marie Morrison, I leave the entirety of my estate, including but not limited to. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. I don't understand, I whispered. My parents showed me a will. It left everything to Brandon. May I see that document? I don't have it. My father kept it. Can you describe it to me? What it looked like, what it said. I closed my eyes, remembering. It was 2 pages, typed. It said that Grandma was leaving the house and her savings to Brandon, that she felt he needed the support more than I did. It had her signature at the bottom. Harold's expression darkened. Ms. Morrison, the document your parents showed you was not your grandmother's will. It was a forgery. The room tilted sideways. A forgery? Yes. He pulled out another document, this one stamped and notarized. This is the certification of filing from the county clerk's office, dated March 15th of last year. Your grandmother's will, the real will, was registered with the court at that time. It is a matter of public record. Then how did my parents... I suspect they created a fraudulent document and presented it to you and your brother as if it were legitimate. The question is whether your brother was complicit in the deception, or simply a beneficiary of it. My mind raced. Brandon's lack of surprise at dinner, his too smooth acceptance, the way he'd already been spending money like it was his before the estate had even been settled. He knew, I said quietly. He had to have known. Harold didn't confirm or deny it. He simply continued. Your grandmother was very specific in her instructions to me. She established an irrevocable trust as the primary vehicle for distributing her assets. Do you know what that means? I shook my head. It means the terms cannot be changed or revoked after her death. Not by your parents. Not by anyone. The trust specifies that you, Jennifer Morrison, are the sole beneficiary of her estate, which includes her home, her savings accounts, her investment portfolios, and several other assets totaling approximately $450,000. $450,000. The exact amount my parents had told me Brandon inherited. Your grandmother also left very clear instructions about what should happen if anyone attempted to contest the will or misrepresent its contents. Harold pulled out yet another document. She anticipated the possibility of family conflict. She knew your family dynamics better than you might think. What do you mean? He adjusted his glasses, his expression softening. Your grandmother came to see me about 3 years ago with concerns about how your parents treated you compared to your brother. She told me that she loved both of you, but that she was worried Brandon was being enabled in ways that would ultimately harm him, and she was worried that you were being taken for granted. The tears came then, hot and fast. She told me, Harold continued gently, that you were the one who showed up, who cared, who listened. She said you reminded her of herself at your age, stubborn, capable, and far too willing to accept less than you deserved from the people who were supposed to love you most. Why didn't she tell me? My voice broke. Why didn't she warn me that my parents would do this? Because she hoped they wouldn't. She hoped that in the end, they would honor her wishes and do the right thing. He paused. But she prepared for the possibility that they wouldn't. That's why she put safeguards in place. That's why she registered the will with the court. That's why she came to see me 6 weeks before her death to confirm that everything was still in order. 6 weeks before, she knew her time was limited, Ms. Morrison. Her heart condition was worsening. She wanted to make absolutely certain that when the time came, there would be no ambiguity about her wishes. I covered my face with my hands, trying to process everything. So what happens now? I asked finally. Harold's expression turned professional again, sharp. Now we prove that what your parents did constitutes property fraud, a criminal offense in this state. We have the original will, the court registration, the trust documents, and my testimony as the drafting attorney. We also have the fact that your parents almost certainly forged your grandmother's signature on a fraudulent document and used it to illegally transfer assets. They gave the money to Brandon, which means those assets were obtained through fraudulent means. Every penny he spent, every purchase he's made, every transfer he's executed, it's all based on property that legally belongs to you. Can we get it back? Most of it, yes. The law provides for the recovery of fraudulently obtained assets. It won't be immediate, and it won't be easy, but the law is on our side. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. Ms. Morrison, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay, do you want to pursue this? Because once we start this process, it will destroy whatever remains of your relationship with your parents. It will expose what they've done. It will likely result in criminal charges. Your family, as you know it, will be over. I thought about the Sunday dinners, the careful performance, the way I'd twisted myself into knots trying to be good enough, trying to earn love that was never going to be freely given. I thought about Brandon's BMW and his luxury apartment and his Miami vacation. I thought about my ramen dinners and my broken couch and my father telling me I wasn't welcome at family dinners unless I apologized for being hurt. And I thought about Grandma Rose, sitting in her sunroom, planning ahead because she knew, she'd always known, that the people who were supposed to protect me would choose themselves instead. When do we start? I asked. Harold Jennings smiled. It was the smile of a man who'd been waiting to fight this fight. We already have. Harold Jennings just dropped the first bomb. But trust me, he's got 3 more documents in that folder, and each one is more devastating than the last. If you want to see a masterclass in legal karma, subscribe right now, and tell me in the comments, should Jenny show mercy, or should she take everything? Let's find out what she chose. Harold Jennings didn't believe in wasting time. Within 48 hours, he'd filed a petition with the probate court to invalidate the fraudulent will and enforce the original. He'd sent formal notification to my parents' attorney, who it turned out had never actually filed any estate documents because there was nothing legitimate to file, and he'd requested a mandatory family meeting to be held at his office, with all parties present, to resolve the matter of Rose Morrison's estate. My parents couldn't refuse without admitting they had something to hide. The meeting was scheduled for Friday at 10 in the morning. I didn't sleep the night before. They arrived separately. My parents came first, dressed like they were attending a business meeting. Dad in his gray suit, the one he wore to important occasions. Mom in a navy dress with pearls. Grandma's pearls, I realized with a sick jolt. The ones she'd always said would be mine someday. They saw me sitting in Harold's waiting room and froze. "Jennifer," Dad's voice was tight. "What are you doing here?" "I was invited," I said calmly, "by Grandma's actual attorney." Mom's face went pale. "Her actual... What are you talking about?" "We handled everything with Richard." "Richard handled a fraud," I said. "Harold handled Grandma's real estate." The color drained from Dad's face so fast I thought he might faint. Before either of them could respond, Brandon arrived. He looked different than he had 3 weeks ago. Tanned from Miami, wearing clothes I didn't recognize. Expensive clothes. The kind you buy when you think money will never run out. He had a Rolex on his wrist. An actual Rolex. He saw all of us, and his confident stride faltered. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between our parents and me. "Why is she here?" "We're about to find out," Dad said grimly. Harold's receptionist appeared. "Mr. Jennings is ready for you now." Harold's office felt smaller with all 5 of us in it. He'd arranged chairs in a semicircle facing his desk, a deliberate choice that made us feel like we were in a courtroom. My parents sat together on one side. Brandon sat next to them, his leg bouncing nervously. I sat on the opposite side, as far from them as the small space allowed. Harold took his seat behind the desk, the thick file folder in front of him like evidence at a trial. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice formal and precise. "I've called this meeting to address serious irregularities concerning the estate of Rose Eleanor Morrison, who passed away on March 12th of this year." "There are no irregularities," Dad said quickly. "The estate was settled according to Rose's wishes." "According to a document you presented to your children?" "Yes." Harold opened the folder with deliberate slowness. "However, that document was not your mother's will." "That's absurd." "Mr. Morrison," Harold's voice cut through the room like a blade, "I am going to give you one opportunity to be honest. After that, I will proceed with legal action that will result in criminal charges. Do you understand?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Mom's hands trembled in her lap. Dad's jaw worked, but no words came out. Brandon looked between them, confusion morphing slowly into fear. "What's he talking about?" Brandon asked. "Dad, what's going on?" Harold didn't wait for an answer. He pulled out a document, the real will, and held it up so everyone could see it. "This," he said, "is the last will and testament of Rose Eleanor Morrison, executed on February 10th of last year, witnessed by 2 individuals, notarized, and filed with the probate court. It is a legally binding document that clearly outlines her final wishes." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the room. "Would you like me to read it aloud?" "That won't be necessary," Dad said, his voice hoarse. "I think it is necessary," I said quietly. All eyes turned to me. I think everyone in this room should hear exactly what Grandma wanted, since apparently what she actually wanted has been kept secret. Harold's eyes met mine. He gave a small nod of approval. "Very well." He adjusted his glasses and began to read. His voice was steady, measured, letting each word land with full weight. "I, Rose Eleanor Morrison, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament." Mom's breathing had gone shallow. I could hear it from across the room. "To my granddaughter, Jennifer Marie Morrison, I leave the entirety of my estate, including but not limited to my home located at 428 Maple Drive, all savings and checking accounts held in my name, all investment portfolios and securities, all personal property and belongings, and any other assets I may possess at the time of my death." Brandon's legs stopped bouncing. "I make this bequest to Jennifer because she has demonstrated throughout her life the values I hold most dear: responsibility, integrity, compassion, and self-sufficiency. She has been a constant presence in my life, offering her time, her care, and her genuine affection without expectation of reward." Harold paused, looked up briefly, then continued. "To my grandson, Brandon James Morrison, I leave my collection of first edition books, which I hope will serve as a reminder that true value cannot be measured in dollars, and that the greatest wealth comes from knowledge, effort, and character." Brandon's face had gone from tan to gray. It is my sincere hope that this decision will serve as a catalyst for Brandon to develop the independence and work ethic that have thus far eluded him. I love him dearly, but love does not mean enabling behavior that ultimately harms the person we claim to care about. Mom made a small, wounded sound. Harold kept reading, relentless and precise. To my son, Robert Morrison, and my daughter-in-law, Patricia Morrison, I leave nothing. Not because I do not love them, but because I do not trust them to honor my wishes, or to treat my grandchildren with the equity and fairness they both deserve. The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. I am aware that my son has favored Brandon throughout his life, excusing behavior that would not have been tolerated from Jennifer. I am aware that my daughter-in-law has encouraged this favoritism, creating a family dynamic that has been profoundly unfair to my granddaughter. I will not enable this pattern to continue beyond my death. Dad's hands were clenched into fists on the armrests of his chair. His knuckles were white. Should anyone attempt to contest this will or misrepresent its contents, I have instructed my attorney, Harold Jennings, to pursue all available legal remedies, including but not limited to criminal prosecution for fraud, forgery, and theft. Harold set the document down gently. That, he said, is your mother's will. Signed, witnessed, notarized, and filed with the court on February 10th of last year. It is a matter of public record. It is indisputable. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. I watched my father's face as the reality settled over him, the way his expression shifted from defiance to shock, to something that looked almost like shame. Almost. Mom's hands covered her mouth. Tears streamed down her face, but I felt nothing for her. Nothing but the cold certainty that these tears were for herself, not for what she'd done to me. Brandon stared at the document like it was written in a language he didn't understand. Wait, he finally said, his voice cracking. Wait, so, the money I've been spending was obtained through fraudulent means, Harold said calmly. Every penny. But Mom and Dad said, your parents lied to you, I said. My voice was steady, stronger than I expected. They forged a will. They told us both that Grandma left everything to you, and they let you spend money that was never yours. Brandon turned to our parents. Is that true? Dad said nothing. Mom sobbed harder. Is that true? Brandon's voice rose, panic bleeding through. We thought it was for the best, Dad said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Rose was being unreasonable, punishing us through you kids. We thought if we handled it ourselves. You committed fraud, Harold said flatly. You forged legal documents, misrepresented a decedent's wishes, and illegally transferred assets. In this state, that constitutes property fraud and theft. Both are felonies. We didn't steal anything, Mom protested weakly. It's family money. We were just redistributing it. You were stealing from your daughter to give to your son, I said. Each word felt like cutting through rope that had bound me for years. You knew what Grandma wanted. You knew she left everything to me, and you decided your preference mattered more than her dying wishes. Jennifer, please. No. I stood up. I'm done. I'm done pretending this is normal. I'm done making excuses for you. I'm done being the daughter who doesn't matter as much. That's not true, Dad said, but there was no conviction in his voice. Isn't it? I looked at him, really looked at him. You told me I couldn't come to family dinners unless I apologized to Brandon for being hurt that he got my inheritance. You watched him buy a BMW and move into a luxury apartment and go to Miami while I was eating ramen to make rent. And you called it networking. Dad looked away. You chose him, I said simply. Over and over, my entire life, you chose him. And when Grandma tried to balance the scales, you chose him again. You broke the law to choose him. The silence that followed was absolute. Harold cleared his throat. Ms. Morrison, do you wish to proceed with legal action? I looked at my parents, at Brandon, these people who I'd loved, who I'd tried so hard to please, who I'd twisted myself into knots for, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a quiet, clear certainty. I want what's mine, I said. Everything Grandma left me. The house, the money, all of it. And I want everyone to know that what they did was illegal. Jennifer, you can't, Mom started. I can, and I will. I turned to Harold. File whatever you need to file. Consider it done. I picked up my purse and walked toward the door. Jenny, wait. Brandon's voice stopped me. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know they forged anything. They just told me Grandma left me the money and I believed them. I turned to look at my brother, at his expensive watch and his designer clothes and his tanned face. Did you ever wonder why, Brandon? Did you ever ask yourself why Grandma would leave everything to you when you barely visited her? When you only called when you needed money? He opened his mouth, closed it. You didn't know because you didn't want to know, because it was easier to take and spend and assume you deserved it. I paused at the door, but you didn't deserve it, and now you're going to have to give it back. I walked out. Behind me, I heard Mom crying, Dad's voice low and urgent, Brandon asking what he was supposed to do. I didn't turn around. I was done looking back. The legal process took 4 months. The court ruled in my favor, and Brandon was ordered to return everything. The BMW, the apartment deposit, all of it. My parents weren't charged criminally, but watching them realize what they'd lost was punishment enough. Mom called 63 times. I never answered. Dad called twice, asking for a chance to make this right. But some betrayals cut too deep to repair. When the estate finally transferred, Harold gave me a letter Grandma had left. My dearest Jennifer, if you're reading this, it means I was right about your parents. You were given this inheritance because you deserve to be seen. Don't let guilt make you small. Family is not an excuse for mistreatment, and forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. You are allowed to protect your peace. The greatest inheritance I could give you was the knowledge that you were always enough, exactly as you are. I read it 3 times before I could speak. I sold Grandma's house, too many ghosts, but kept her violets and books. I paid off my student loans, bought a small house with a sunroom, and invested the rest exactly the way she'd taught me. I didn't buy luxury. I built security. I built peace. Brandon texted once, "I'm sorry. I really didn't know." I never responded. My parents sent a birthday card. The door is always open when you're ready. But I am ready. I'm just not walking through that door. People ask if I regret it. If I miss my family. I miss the family I thought I had, but I don't miss making myself smaller to make them comfortable. I don't miss being the daughter who had to earn love while my brother simply received it. Cutting them off wasn't revenge. It was self-preservation. It was choosing myself the way they never chose me. Here's what I learned. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because you share DNA. You don't owe forgiveness to people who are only sorry they got caught. Love should not cost you your peace. Family should not cost you your dignity. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away and let everyone live with the consequences of their choices. Grandma Rose taught me that a smart woman plans ahead. But more importantly, a strong woman knows her worth. I know mine now. And I finally understand I was always worthy of being chosen first, even if the people who should have chosen me never did. I hope wherever Grandma is, she knows I finally learned the lesson she spent years trying to teach me, that I was always enough, exactly as I am.